Hello, welcome to the PinkUn podcast. My name is Connor Southwell, and I've been chatting with another former Norwich City player. Today it's Damien Francis, of course Norwich City midfielder across a 2-year spell from 2003 to 2005, was involved in the title-winning championship season under Nigel Worthington, also in that Premier League season as well, where they so nearly completed this great escape, albeit for a pretty terrible performance at Craven Cottage, which Damien talks about. He mentioned that this is the first time he's really spoken about his Norwich City career, also his exit. He addresses comments that Nigel Worthington made about him in the local press, addresses rumours that he went on strike, and talks about the good moments as well. Top of the league at Portman Road, clinching promotion, how the celebrations at City Hall was one of the best moments of his career. There's plenty packed in there, and it's a really enjoyable one, a slightly different one as well. So I hope you enjoy. If you do, make sure to like, review, subscribe, and of course you can get in touch with us on social media as well to have your say and to have your view on Damien Francis, and because again he's not one that has done a lot of talking since he left football and since he left Norwich City, so it was good to catch up with him, and it's good to hear his side of the story, because as ever there are two sides to every story. Enjoy this podcast. It was great speaking to Damien Francis. I hope you really enjoy it. I wanted to start really with just what you're up to now, because we don't really hear much from you in terms of Norwich supporters. I think it'd be interested to hear what you're up to.
No, sure. Since sort of I had to retire early, obviously through injury, and I took a bit of time out really to assess sort of a few years actually after I retired, to sort of see where I wanted to take my life, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I started my coaching badges. But yeah, I enjoyed it, but not to the enjoyment that I wanted it as a career. So I started to work for a few football agencies who I knew. So the person who was my agent, I've worked with him, and I worked with a few others and seen how that was, and I really took to that. So what I've done, I've started my own now, but that's been for the last sort of year or so. I've been taking it really seriously, and yeah, that's moving ahead. So that's exactly what I'm doing, managing players and nurturing them from. My stable's very young at the moment, so I'm just stepping in the right direction with them at the moment. So I'm flying all over the place, all over the globe, really looking after them. But as we all are at the moment, with the virus, it's all on pause. So yeah.
That's interesting that you've gone into it.
That's the reason I'm at the moment, because she's housebound.
It's difficult for everyone at the moment, isn't it? I think more psychologically than anything else, it's difficult. It's
exactly.
Interesting you say that you've gone into agency as a former player. Do you think you can offer those young players something a bit different to perhaps what agents who haven't played the game can?
Well, yes, of course, because everything that they've sort of are going through or are about to go through, I have been through, in my career, whether it be, obviously starting from a very young age, all the way through making it pro, etc., having injury, having, triumphs and falls also, so when it comes to actually the respect that I get from the players who I look after, it is on another level. They do listen to me because I'm coming from a place where obviously they know I've been there, seen it, done it, so that does help on that side of things when it comes to my business with the players, because I'm passionate about football. Like that's been my whole life, thus far. So when it comes to that, I enjoy it, and I enjoy passing down my know-how and experience to my players, but ultimately they have to do the business on the pitch. But I'm just there to sort of aid them in any way I can, on and off the pitch, when it comes to that. So yeah, it does help, but there's another element of the job where it's business as well. So I need to look after them off the pitch and have a sort of sharp mind on a business side as well. So there's two-pronged approach, but it's not as black and white as, okay, I played football at a decent level in England and I should be a really good agent. It just doesn't work like that, So So it's a lot of things combined, but I really enjoy it, and yeah, it's going well.
It's good to hear. Have you had any dealings with Norwich City at all?
To be honest, I haven't yet. Over the last, when was it? I suppose the last 6 weeks or so, I've been up to Norwich a few times when I had a night to do with a Legends Night, if you know what I mean. And I was part of that. Maybe you know, touch base, and then I came up against the Norwich versus Liverpool, come to do the Darren Eady show. And then I bumped into. I was doing a show with one of my ex-teammates that was at Wigan. Righty, he's the under-23 manager at Norwich, which I didn't even know until I bumped into him. So now I will be attending Norwich and speaking to a lot of people at Norwich to see if I can work with Norwich. Of course, I'd love to. That'd be amazing.
Let's talk about your career a little bit then. How do you reflect on your time at Norwich City? Because you were part of that sort of 2-year spell where obviously they had the Championship triumph and then perhaps a little bit of regret in the Premier League. But how do you reflect on it both sort of personally and I suppose your time in the team?
Broadly speaking, it is a fantastic time because for me personally, having grew up in London and spent all my time in London, and obviously I played for Wimbledon in London, so all I knew was sort of living in London. So moving to Norwich, where it was a total different pace of life for me, plus I was by myself, if you know what I mean, living there, it was totally solely about football. So that I feel like that elevated my thinking and my focus really, and I think my game improved on that side as well. So now I enjoyed it. Norwich is a fantastic place to live as well. It's a really nice part of the world. So got to experience that. The training ground at the time was, well, and still is, of course, it was really, really nice. And I wasn't used to that, to be honest with you, the pictures and stuff like that being so immaculate, because at Wimbledon, they weren't like that bad, but I mean, they weren't like that, the standard that Norwich pitches were. So that was even that something as simple as that was really, really enjoyable, really, to work in those conditions every single day. And obviously on the pitch, that first season, we obviously won the championship, or it was the last year of the first division, it was called actually then. But that was a very enjoyable time, because obviously when you win the league, it's only going to be that. And then obviously we got promoted into the Premier League, and we had a up and down sort of season. We had really, really good moments and really bad moments. Of course, it ended up in a really bad, what can I say, tip, because obviously, I look back at that day with regret, but at the same time, I have nothing but great thoughts when it comes to myself affiliated with Norwich and my time at Norwich. So now, I mean, not everything's going to be perfect in life, but now, on the whole, I thought my time at Norwich was really, really a highlight of my career that I look back on.
It's good to hear. And you mentioned it there, but you obviously signed from Wimbledon when they were in a bit of difficulty themselves, and we all know what happened afterwards. And you mentioned stepping away from London. What was the adaptation like? Because obviously, as we all know, Norfolk is a bit out of the way for anyone really. So did you find it difficult sort of coming out of Wimbledon, a place that perhaps you were, well, you've known in London as well, and going to Norwich and adapting there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a good thing, because it was obviously 2 hours drive from London, so I couldn't just nip back to London when I wanted. You know what I mean? I was really sort of isolated there, but that, as I said, it helped me to actually sit down in one place and really not have my family around and friends around. Not saying my family and friends were bad influences, but obviously when you're used to having your family and friends around, you're a bit busier than you sort of would normally be, but I didn't really know that until I went to Norwich, and so I didn't really, to adapt to live in Norwich was pretty easy for me, because I enjoyed it straight away, so I enjoyed it straight away, and as a footballer, you enjoy your life in general when football's really, really good, when you're doing really well and you feel like you're progressing as a player. And I felt like at Norwich, as soon as I got to the training ground, I looked around, spoke to the manager. I saw that I could improve as a player, because that was my ultimate thought, really, when it came to moving.
That's interesting. And you mentioned the manager there. Nigel Worthington was obviously the boss at the time. What did he say to you and that convinced you to come to Norwich? You mentioned obviously the facilities, which must have been a major attraction, but did he sell you the club at all? Did he say anything of note that made you really interested?
Yeah, I mean, it was mainly football conversations we had when it came to what he sort of expected from his players, really, that he signed, and the main thing was obviously hard work, day in, day out, which is a given to any footballer anyway. But he felt like he could improve me as well, as a player. But that was that, and what else? And just in general, where he wanted to take the club, really, and that was obviously challenging as high as possible in the league that season, and he felt that I could be a player, a really good part in that. So now I was happy with what he said, and it coupled with regards to what I saw as well around the place. So now from day one, really, it was like I just couldn't wait to move up and get my football going, and especially obviously from when Wimbledon was my boyhood club, so I supported Wimbledon from the age of 6 and stuff like that. Signed with them when I was 9, and then obviously went on to be a pro at 17 years old, and went into the first team, played in the Premier League from 19, and I was a captain. All these types of things, and so the next sort of step for me, I wasn't. It's not like I was wanting necessarily a move at that time. It was just off the back of Wimbledon being, in administration and sort of going out of business effectively. So the next move after that was pretty important for me. I did have a few other clubs that I could have went to, but ultimately I'm happy it worked out at Norwich.
Absolutely, and I mentioned I was reading a few of your quotes when you signed. David Nielsen, who of course used to play for Norwich, was quite pivotal in the move. Is that right?
David Nielsen?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Or he certainly had a conversation with you at least. Well, you said that he had a conversation with you at the time. You might not remember, in fairness, but
no, I don't actually.
No, that's fair enough. I think you played with him at Wimbledon, but that's fine.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's possible. It's possible. Yeah, I did play with him. I can't actually remember the conversation that I had with him, but it's possible. It's possible that I had a conversation with him for sure. And he's a good guy himself. Actually, it's funny you say, because I speak to him quite regularly now, because he's obviously a manager in Denmark, and I was meant to fly over there just before the coronavirus, but yeah, obviously that's been halted. But I will get to see him when this all dies down and stuff. So now.
Yeah, well, it was 17 years ago, so that's fair enough.
There you go.
Remember. Yeah. Your debut, you made it in that 2-2 draw against Bradford City. I think you got man of the match in that game. What was that like for you as an experience as a debut? How high does that rank in terms of all the debuts you made?
Yeah, I remember being, obviously, it was a very hot day, like the first game of the season normally is. Bradford, we were sort of. I can't remember if we started the game well or bad. I can't remember, but I remember winning the penalty that we scored. I don't know who scored it. I can't remember, but I remember winning the penalty and feeling really fit that day, because obviously I had a really good pre-season and stuff. I think we probably should have won that game actually, but ultimately it was a good start to the season, performance-wise, and myself, I really enjoyed my performance, but I knew that it wasn't perfect, but it was a solid start from my perspective, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was an interesting group that you played with that time. There was a lot of sort of what you describe as seasoned pros in there. I mean, Malky Mackay, Ewan Roberts, Darren Huckabee obviously came in later on, didn't he? What sort of group was that like to play in? What was the environment like that you guys had? Was there a real togetherness amongst you?
I can really say there was. There wasn't like any, I'm going to say like any huge egos or anything like that. Everyone was really together, but everyone was very professional, and it wouldn't hold back from figuring you out if you wasn't pulling away, etc. You know what I mean? So it's a good blend. It's a good blend. Obviously, as you mentioned, Malky Mackay, Craig Fleming, Hux was later on, and but no, it was a solid group. I'd say that really solid group that I came to when I walked into a club. It was evident to see that there was a backbone in the club. You know what I mean? There was an identity in the squad and stuff like that, and so in a way it was easier for me to sort of integrate into that, because I was that way inclined as well. You know what I mean? I wanted to win. I wanted to work hard. You know what I mean? No excuses. But if I do bad, I hold my hand up. You know what I mean? It's accountability, all of these things that I think I have, and so it was in that respect. It was a really good group to be involved in, and of course Adam Drury as well was a really good player and nice guy to obviously have around as well.
Yeah, so I was speaking to Mark Edworthy, of course, who's also played alongside.
Oh yeah, of course, Mark Edworthy. Yeah, there's too many people. Sorry,
yeah, there is. Yeah, there's. Yeah. Well, you could sit here and name the whole squad, couldn't you? But
exactly.
The thing that came out, or certainly that he said, was just how hard-working a group it was, and that as you said there, it wasn't really egos, and it was a real sort of sense of what you guys all wanted to achieve, and you went out and did it that season. And of course, you came in off the back of a playoff final defeat. Did you feel when you came in that there was a sense of hunger perhaps to go further, to get promoted, to get to the Premier League?
You know what it was? It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't really talked about per se, about like, you know, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. It was literally just taking it, as cliche as it sounds, like game by game, training session by training session. Do you know what I mean? Like getting everything we possibly can out of every training session, being focused on a day by day basis. The manager didn't let us, you know, ever slip up or when I say slip up, I mean take a foot off the pedal when it came to actually the focus and training, which kept everybody on their toes. But coupled with that, the players themselves sort of we were motivated ourselves, and also to have the high standards for ourselves, you know, and we felt like we could achieve something, but it wasn't necessarily spoken about that we're going to do this or going to do that at the start of the season. I remember around Christmas time, I think we were top of the league, so I don't know how many points ahead we were, but we were thinking, you know, a few rumblings within the squad. A few of the boys I speak to were like, "No, we're going to do this. We're going to do this." You know what I mean? That's when it started to become. We saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and the goal that we wanted to, that is possible to achieve. That and we sort of just kept on, really. Just kept on, just kept on and stayed on it.
How big is togetherness in football? Because it's interesting, and we of course saw it last season with Norwich. They won the championship title again. I think they matched the points tally that your squad got, actually. But how big a trait is togetherness in sort of any success in football? Because it feels like something that can get overlooked at times.
It can get overlooked. Because it's huge. It's huge because you need everybody sort of pulling in the right direction. I've played at clubs where, you know, that hasn't been the case, and, you know, one group is pulling in that direction because they want that, or one is on that. Their situation's over here. Do you know what I mean? You do need everybody, and I felt like at that time at Norwich, from the sort of the kit men to the physios to, you know, the guys at the stadiums, etc. Do you know what I mean? Everyone was sort of on board and playing their part in regards to actually achieving what we wanted to achieve. So, to answer your question, it's huge in any football club, you know, and it obviously comes from what the club's ambitions are as well, because each clubs have their own ambition and budgets and situations, etc. And if you've got everything married up when it comes to manager, players, and conditions, then you can really achieve fantastic things. Like, for example, Leicester winning the Premier League. I'm sure you speak to a few of them players, they were like, everything was sort of aligned, everyone was pulling in the right direction. I haven't spoken to any of them players, by the way, about that, but I'm just saying it as an example that I'm sure it was easy anyway to see that they were all together, you know, and I felt like in the years that I was at Norwich, it was that way. It was that way also.
And in terms of Nigel, we spoke about him earlier briefly, but how did he go about managing the group? Because I think structure is the word that comes to mind when Norwich fans think of that team. Perhaps defensively very organised, worked hard as we've touched upon, but obviously with Huckabee and Crouch coming in, injected a little bit of attacking edge. What did he say to you? What was your role in the team, and how did he go about managing that group?
My role in the team, I'll start with that. My role in the team, you know, I was obviously a box-to-box midfielder. I could get up and down the pitch. I could tackle. I could, you know, sort of do a bit of everything, if you like, and I can score the odd goal here and there. And he just demanded that from me every single game, you know. And it was good with myself and Gary Holt. He was working player, so we got through a lot of work in the midfield area. But yeah, my role in the team was just that. When it comes to Nigel Worthington's sort of style, he was organisation was 100% part of what he stood for. So we all sort of knew what we needed to do when we went onto the pitch on a Saturday or Tuesday, whenever we played. Which really, really helped. So, you know, whoever came in, whoever wasn't playing, whoever came in, they sort of knew their roles, because he had a sort of structure and a way that he wanted it to play. And as you said, the back line was really solid, and hopefully, I think the midfield was as well. And as you say, when Crouchy and Hux came in, it gave us a different dimension, and Leo Mackenzie came in as well, but yeah, it gave us totally different dimension as a team, because obviously them two are top quality players, and yeah, really made a big difference to us.
You mentioned Leo Mackenzie. I don't think we could mention him without mentioning that day at Portman Road. I think you were actually an unused sub in that game, but what are your memories of that win at Portman Road? Because it obviously put Norwich City top of the league for the first time. I don't think you got knocked off the top after that result. Yeah. How important was it? Did you perhaps understand how big a derby match that was?
Did I understand how? But I mean, of course, when you sort of, I suppose at the time I got to understand on the day, if you know what I mean, and the sort of lead up to it. But I didn't understand before that how big it was until you actually play to Norwich and see what the reactions are like, etc., etc. So now it was a huge win on a load of fronts, as you said. Going top of the league was the main thing for us from our perspective, but to beat, you know, Ipswich was like, you know, huge for the fans, for the whole town, if you like, and I think that sort of I'm gonna say it really helped the season moving forward after that. You know, so yeah, and Leon to score the 2 goals was massive for him as well. Really happy for him, and yeah, it was a really, really top performance and top result.
And in terms of if we progress a little bit to clinching promotion, those celebrations that you had at the City Hall, where does that rank in terms of your career? To look out and see so many people with obviously a trophy to show, that must have been quite a special moment when you reflect back on your career now.
No, it's massive. It was massive. It was an amazing day. It was incredible to see how many fans came out to Norwich to sort of celebrate with us, you know. And yeah, looking back, it was, as a player, you always want to win something. That's what you're there for, because from when I was young, you always used to sort of winning. Well, say used to. I mean, I was privileged to win quite a few things, you know, for youth team sort of levels or wherever else, whether it be personal or collective, whatever else. And when you turn as a pro, it doesn't really stop. You really want to win. That's what you're playing for. You want to win something. So to win some silverware, of course, it's not the Premier League or whatever, but to win the championship like that, and to have a medal for that, and a day out like we had with the fans, is incredible to when I think back at it. And I, you know, obviously I still have my medal, and I can show my kids that I won something, etc., etc. To have something out of your career physically that I can show. So now it was an amazing one accomplishment for the club, and personally really rewarding.
Yeah, and you said there, big for you, big for everyone that was in that squad, because plenty of footballers can go throughout their career and not win anything, can't they? So
exactly,
it's special to look back on, and I think Norwich fans certainly look back on that season very fondly. Let's think about the Premier League then. In terms of the adaptation to that, how difficult was it for maybe the team as a collective, because obviously you go from the Championship where you've won a lot of games, you're top of the league, you've won the title, to suddenly being in the Premier League where you're facing probably better teams, but equally you fail to win. What was it, until November, October, was it? So how difficult was that for you as a team to adapt to?
I don't think we weren't, even though we weren't winning at the start, we weren't sort of being outplayed or humped, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? We're in games, but it was the margins that in the Premier League. That's what it's about. It's about taking your chances when they do come. It's cliches I'm going to come up with, but it's so true. It's about taking your chances when they do come. Otherwise, you know, you can get punished for those. And ultimately, that's what happened with us, really. So we weren't outplayed massively. I think we were in a lot of games, but no, I think once we got the first win, got a bit more confidence. We were there or thereabouts, but ultimately, I know we went down. But the difference between the Championship and the Premier League is it's just the margins are so much finer, you know. You don't really get a second chance necessarily in the Premier League. That's what sort of differentiates the top players to the really good players, you know, or average players, if you want to call it that. But I'm not saying all of the squad we have was average. I'm saying we were good enough to stay up, I believe. But I know we went down. But it was Premiership can be, you know, a harsh place. Yeah. But ultimately, I think we all enjoyed. Do you know what I mean? You can't not enjoy playing in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? It's incredible, and I speak for myself. I felt 100% at home playing in the Premier League. I had played in the Premier League previously with Wimbledon anyway, so I knew what it was about. But now it was. It's the only place to play football if you have the if you can do, you know.
Absolutely. I want to speak about a couple of decisions made before that season by the club. Obviously, they let go Ewan Roberts and Malky Mackay, two mainstays really of that Championship winning squad. And hindsight's a glorious thing, isn't it? But if do you look back perhaps at those decisions as perhaps been a little bit of a mistake of the club, because they could have kept a couple of really experienced bodies in that squad that maybe could have helped Norwich stay up?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I mean, when it comes to, Robbo, I think he was, in the latter stages of his career, but he was a fantastic player still, and his experience around the place as well was invaluable, So to sort of not keep him on, may have been a mistake in hindsight, and Malcolm Mackay also the same, top professional, very good player, and a really good character as well. So those two, I would have liked to personally have seen the club keep them on, but I don't know what the club situation was financially, or what the sort of thinking was behind not keeping them on. I didn't really speak to the boys about that, but looking back, hindsight's a fantastic thing, but it would have been really good to have them around for sure in the squad for that year.
Yeah, I guess you can't put a price on experience, can you? Let's speak about you personally, because you had a really good season in the Premier League, 7 goals, played a lot of games as well, and you said you felt at home in the Premier League. Did you? How do you rank that season? How do you reflect on that season, I suppose? Because it was a difficult one for the club and the team, but for you personally, probably quite a pleasing one.
Yeah, it was very pleasing, very pleasing. At the same time, pleasing, but I feel like I could have done more. Do you know what I mean? I don't really. I have high standards myself, and of myself. So I feel like I could have done more that season, when it comes to, you look back at your career, I should have scored that goal, I should have done this. But do you know what I mean? It's always more you think you should have done. But ultimately, I really enjoyed the season. And as I said, I would have loved to stayed up with Norwich, but I knew at the end of that year, as I said to you previously, there's only placed 2 players in the Premier League. So at the end of the season, when we went down, I wanted to stay in the Premier League. And unfortunately, it's a short career of football, and you have to look after yourself as well, and every footballer aspires to play at the highest level. So, but that season was really, really good for me in a lot of ways. A lot of people got to see what I was really about in the Premier League, and I got quite a few decent mentions, and people knew me a bit more, and I really look back at a really, really good season.
Yeah, and I think, so obviously, sadly, we've got to talk about it. It was pretty much, wasn't it, that season, the great escape that didn't happen, because the club had so many good results, obviously setting it up for that final day at Fulham. And I suppose the natural question to ask, I suppose, and exactly the same as I asked Mark Edworthy, is what happened on that day, because it all sort of fell apart, didn't it, a little bit?
No, a little bit is an understatement.
I was trying to be kind.
Yeah, really. It was a terrible. As I said, one of the worst days of my football career. Do you know what I mean? When it comes in all aspects, really. One, my performance. 2, the sort of scoreline that we lost to, and just a lackluster, crappy performance. Do you know what I mean? And I can only, we were a team, we just didn't turn up. Do you know what I mean? And myself, as a integral player in that team, I should have done more, obviously, on that day. But football is not black and white. Do you know what I mean? It's not. Of course, we would have loved to have won that game and stayed up. You know what I mean? We didn't not try or anything like that. It was just sometimes everything sort of just doesn't work out in football sometimes. You know what I mean? You can't really put up a finger on exactly what it was. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I speak for myself, and I wasn't. I don't know. I spoke about this previously on the Legend time. I was carrying a bit of an injury on my foot, But of course, I was always planning to play because we needed to stay up, or whatever. We needed to stay up, and I was going to do everything I could do to be on the pitch. But yeah, I didn't feel myself. The players didn't feel. I don't know what it was. I really can't put my finger on exactly what it was. All I can say is that, really embarrassing, really, performance. I would say that embarrassing performance, and for it to sort of fizzle out and end on that note, that season was really, it was hard to take. Even now, thinking about it, And of course, the fans obviously looking at it probably thought that a few players threw the towel in, or I wasn't trying, or whatever else. I've heard various things, but I take all the criticism on that day, for that day, sorry, personally. But yeah, it wasn't a sort of for lack of trying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though it may have looked like we weren't trying. Do you know what I mean? Because we were so poor that day.
Yeah, as you can imagine, I guess supporters probably look back on that day with their own conspiracy theories and thoughts on perhaps what went wrong. But from a player's perspective, I mean, you mentioned you had a slight knock, but it was just a case of a bad day at the office, really, wasn't it? I think all round.
Correct. Yeah, correct. I mean, it's just a horrid day, a horrid day, and every footballer looks back at one particular, or maybe a couple, but one particular match that they played in, and they think, "Wow, what a nightmare that was." Do you know what I mean? And that personally for me, that was mine.
Interesting. Let's talk about your exit and the way you left Norwich City then, because there's obviously you're a player who perhaps drew a lot of speculation. You mentioned there you've got a lot of personal mentions. I've got Middlesbrough, Charlton, Portsmouth, all linked to you down there.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, because I think Norwich fans perhaps have an idea of how you left the club, but haven't perhaps heard it from yourself. So and there's always two sides to a story, isn't there? So how do you recall how you left the club? How do you think about that now?
When I think about it, I mean, it was. As I said, I wanted to, from a personal perspective, I wanted to stay in the Premier League if I could do. I knew that there were clubs interested in me, and Norwich themselves knew that as well. But I mean, one thing. What happened was Nigel Worthington. In the summer, what happened? Yeah, in the summer, was sort of talking quite badly in the local press about me. Mm-hmm. It was mentioned a few things that weren't actually true, and the club had handed me a good contract, and etc. And I was doing this, and I was doing that. A lot of it was, and I wasn't wanting to go tit for tat with Nigel Worthington or anybody, do you know what I mean? Because I respected everybody at the club. But yeah, because I remember my last actual match was a pre-season match. I came on at Carrow Road against Inter Milan, and I was a half-time substitute. I came on, and every touch that I had, sort of whole stadium was booing me and stuff like that. But I knew why, because of what was mentioned in the press by Nigel Worthington about me. But that was a little bit hard to take, of course. But I wasn't very happy about that. But yeah, what can I say? I mean, players' football career it has its moments where it's very difficult, and the fans will not know everything that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to my relationships with players, or the club with players, and players with clubs. You know what I mean? A lot happens. So and of course you have a value on your head, and if that value is met, and all parties are happy with the situation, or unhappy, it can happen sometimes. That players move on. So that's what happened, and ultimately I wasn't happy moving from Norwich, because obviously as I said to you, I was extremely happy at Norwich, extremely. But if you have a chance to stay in the Premier League, I was always going to take it, to be honest with you, because as I said, it's the only place to play your football, and I wanted to stay in the Premier League, So yeah.
Yeah, I think every that's where every player wants to play, isn't it? And I don't think anyone begrudges anyone who gets an opportunity to play at the highest level.
Sure.
In terms of what you mentioned there about what Nigel has said to the local press, there was obviously at the time stuff about you going on strike and stuff like that. Was it ever as drastic as that, or is this the stuff that you're talking about that you weren't happy with?
Well, I'm laughing because I don't remember hearing that one, because as I said, I blanked out quite a bit of it because
probably wise.
As a pro, if you think about if you believe and read everything that is written about you and said about you, you wouldn't do anything. You know what I mean? You wouldn't come out of the house. So it's one of them things where I don't remember hearing that one, but I never once went on strike at all. I was always training. I was always where I needed to be. I never got. If that was the case, they would have fined me anyway. Do you know what I mean? I never got fined. I was always present. But in that pre-season, I wasn't in the team. I wasn't playing the pre-season matches because of the situation that was happening in the background with maybe a possible move. So that's what was happening more than actually me going on strike. He just wasn't playing me. You know, he wasn't playing me. So that's the real answer.
Yeah, I think these things can get blown out of proportion quite a bit sometimes, can't they?
Oh, massively, yeah. And especially when, as I said, I wasn't saying anything, so no one heard from me when it comes to the situation, you know.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's two sides to every story, because if you only hear one side, then it creates a certain perception, doesn't it?
Yeah, correct.
And that's it. Do you feel like, because of the way that, and you said some of the stuff that Nigel said, do you think the way that your exit happened and perhaps ended a bit sourly, and you mentioned the fans booing you there, do you feel you're remembered perhaps a little bit unfairly as a Norwich City player, because you had such a good season in that Premier League year that perhaps is forgotten a little bit?
It's possible. It's possible. It's possible that I'm not really revered, maybe in the best light, because they've never really heard from me. If you know what I mean. To them, I've never said anything. I've just I was always fairly quiet anyway. But I just sort of got on with my job, and then all of a sudden you're hearing Damien Francis leaving the club, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I can see why some fans may think a certain way about me. But I think ultimately, I think most fans sort of respected the way I played and respected me as a footballer and as a player, and I hope that they have that in their heads more than actually how things were left when I did leave the club. Not with them not knowing the details or bits and pieces that went on in the background, you know. But now, I mean, from my perspective, everything, as I said, my time at Norwich for 2 years was very positive. The fans were incredible to me, and I'm really grateful for that. But I know football is a very emotional game. You know what I mean? It provokes emotion in people, and when they see that a player maybe act in a certain way to a club or to fans or to a manager or whatever else, they may take a side of the club, which I understand. I'm not, understand, but I can say that wasn't the case when it comes to myself. It was just an unfortunate situation that happened that, but I didn't, as I said, I didn't respond in any way through press or through talking. I just had to do what I needed to do for my career and in my career. But no, I hope I'm seen in a positive light with most Norwich fans. You can't please everybody, but yeah, hopefully it's like that in that way.
Yeah.
But when I see Norwich fans and stuff like that, the majority of them are very, pleased to see me. We speak about football, speak about those days when I was there with fond memories. So hopefully they can keep those memories more than actually, the sort of little negativity that happened at the end.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure they do. Let's talk about the current team then, because you mentioned you were at the Liverpool game. What have you made of them and their approach to the Premier League? Because they've taken it perhaps a different direction to what you guys did when you came up. Well, obviously it's not been a great season so far for them.
Sure.
But what do you make of them? Have you been impressed with them?
I have been impressed. Yeah, I mean it's quite interesting that he's the manager stuck with his philosophy. He hasn't deviated from what he wants to do and how he wants to play, which is commendable. but at the same time, I think he probably could have changed certain things when it comes to actually the defensive structure against certain teams. But that's his philosophy. But he's done well with what he's been given. I know he hasn't spent loads of money either, so that's another factor that the club have not adopted. To splash the cash on huge expensive players and on huge wages. So if they do go down, then they'll be in a decent financial position anyway, I'm sure, to bounce back again. But the Liverpool game it was an incredible game to go to, actually, because Norwich were ran Liverpool really, really closely, didn't they? And I was really, really impressed with that performance. And they've got some really, really, really good players as well. I like Cantwell. I think is really, really promising player. When I say promising, I'm not being condescending. He's a good player already. Do you know what I mean? He's very good, but there's much more to come from him, and I see him having a really good career at Norwich and wherever he goes after that. I think he's a real special talent. So in fact, I remember seeing him play in a youth team at a training ground years ago, and when a coach at Norwich mentioned him, and I was like, he looks good. And so to see him in the Premier League doing what he's doing with Norwich is really refreshing to see.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I suppose from Norwich's perspective and the club's perspective, and you're obviously an agency, and even if they do go down, then as you mentioned there, they've got a few assets with these younger players that financially they're going to be in a stable position.
Well, exactly. If they choose to sell the players that they do have, then as you said, they'll be in even a much stronger position as well. With that, hopefully the players stay there, and get the club back into the Premier League next season. Who knows? If Norwich go down, by the way, still got a chance of staying up. But if that is the case, then hopefully they stay and play a part in the promotion push for next season. But now, as you say, they'll be in a very strong financial position to go again either way, whether they stay in the Premier League or they don't stay in the Premier League. So now I can see from the outside looking in, I can see that's they're adopting that way instead of splashing the cash, which they've done in the past and been burnt. So maybe they didn't want to do that again.